Hey guys, in this video I want to quickly cover about different sources of damage at endgame. In particular, the difference between crit damage and percent elemental or attack damage, because I've been discussing with many people on Discord, and generally a lot of newer players have this misunderstanding about how the damage calculation works. And knowing this at endgame helps you to improve your passive tree and build to squeeze out more DPS. But you'll see why. I'll give a few examples in this video. So first of all, it's a bit different I think when you're leveling versus at endgame. At endgame, I strongly recommend for monks, at least for invokers, to go for crit hit chance and crit damage. And the reason for that is twofold at endgame. First of all, the monk's weapon has a pretty high critical hit chance at base, so all quarterstaffs have a minimum 10% critical hit chance. The Gothic wall staff has a base 11.5% critical hit chance, so slightly higher. And of course, if you roll critical hit chance on your staff, then it's even higher than that. So it's easier as a quarterstaff user to hit a notable and sizable critical hit chance. But the other reason is that in the monk's passive tree, you also have access to a bunch of critical hit nodes, allowing you an easier time to amass a significant critical hit chance and critical hit bonus. For reference, my main DPS skill, Tempest Flurry, currently has roughly a 46% critical hit chance and 560% critical damage bonus. And this is roughly the number you want to go for critical hit chance. I generally try to recommend somewhere above 40%, and critical hit bonus as high as possible once we hit a decent critical hit chance. During leveling, like I say, it's a bit different because during leveling, your base damage is low and it's very difficult to get a decent critical hit chance rating as you are gearing up. Plus, a lot of the juicy critical hit nodes are pretty far away in the passive tree. So during leveling, it's probably easier and more efficient to just, as you're pathing through, maybe pick up a few attack nodes is fine because they are nearer towards the center. But once you hit, when they're nearer to the center, but once you hit endgame and you have more points to spend and you can reach further into the passive tree, it's more efficient damage wise to try and build that decent critical hit chance and critical hit damage versus percent elemental damage or percent attack damage. So I'll give you a few good comparisons and examples why this is the case. Again, my main DPS skill is Tempest Flurry, and Tempest Flurry is predominantly a lightning damage attack. So, you might be wondering, then isn't this kind of node going to be very good for the build? 12% increased lightning damage for a lightning attack? Not particularly. So if you go to the advanced info about the attack, notice here that my damage was 2.143 million, and picking up these nodes increased the damage by only 13,000 out of 2.1 million. So that 12% increase isn't really a lot. If I compare this small node to another small node, so say this one gives me 15% critical damage bonus, the damage increases from 2.14 to 2.19, so this is a 52,000 DPS increase. 52,000 versus 13,000 is a pretty sizable difference. This is a 4 times increase. Small node versus small node, 15% critical damage bonus gives me 4 times increase versus a 12% increase lightning damage. Obviously, this depends on what your critical hit chance is, and this is why I say getting a good base for critical hit chance is important. But for monks at least and invokers at endgame, it's not that hard to hit 40% plus critical hit chance, after which you start to see very substantial returns in critical damage bonus. Another good example for plus elemental damage is this coming calamity. So this looks to be, from an overview, to be a sizable damage increase because it says 50% increased damage while affected by a herald, and since you're affected by a herald, the damage increase is more or less constant all the time. But if you look at the damage that you get out of it, so this is an increase of 56,000 DPS, so it's roughly equal to a 15% crit damage bonus. Not a lot of increase, and the thing about this sort of big juicy plus elemental damage nodes is you need to spend few points to get to it, and the points to get to it is extremely small in damage. So for example, again, 12% increased damage, so it's the same as 12% lightning damage, is only a 13,000 DPS increase. I need to spend 3 points to get this, whereas the 3 points I can spend on 3 different critical damage bonus, and each time I do that I get 50,000 DPS increase. And there are a lot of critical damage bonus to take that you can potentially take, so there's some examples here and there. I think this is critical hit chance, but I'm not even picking up all the critical damage bonus nodes there's still a few more to take, and really points are so limited. I'm already at level 96 and there's still a lot of nodes left that's not taken, that it's probably just more efficient at endgame to go for crit hit chance and crit bonus to damage your DPS versus straight damage increase. Now let's look at attack percentage. So Killer Instinct, for example, gives you 30% attack damage when you're on full life. So I'm now in the hideout and I'm on full life, and this gives me an increase in 33,000 out of 2.1 million. So it's not nothing, obviously you still get a damage increase, but even Killer Instinct, for example, is a smaller increase versus a small 15% critical damage bonus boost. And again, to get to this I need to spend 3 points, and along the way the increase is extremely small. So this is a 12,000 out of 2.1 million damage increase, and I need to take 2 of these to get to Killer Instinct. So if your goal is to increase DPS, it's not as efficient as stacking crit. Another popular node taken is Blinding Strike. So Blinding Strike gives you 24% increased attack damage, and you can see for normal strikes for my Tempest Flurry, this is only a 27,000 looks like DPS increase, so half of a critical damage bonus node. Not very sizable at all. Now one thing is, don't mistake plus percent increase elemental damage to something like this. So let's say for example I am the Blizzard, gain 10% of damage as extra cold damage. This is a different type of multiplier. This is not an additive multiplier. This actually multiplies your damage by roughly the 10%. So you can see the damage is much more sizable in this sort of wording. The damage increased by 2.14 to 2.21, so pretty sizable, because it's not the same as plus elemental damage. The other big difference, of course, is flat damage. So flat damage is desirable, and I don't have any good examples here, unfortunately, but a common place to get flat damage is obviously the rings, and I don't really have that. But say for example on this ring it has 1 to 22 lightning damage. So in endgame, getting high flat damage is desirable. They do give you more damage returns in your DPS versus percentage elemental damage, and this is why a lot of people at endgame try to craft high flat damage. In particular, of course, for invokers, if you get different elements, you can then land different elemental ailments on your Tempest Bell, which also gives you another damage boost on your Tempest Bell. So that's it for this video. I hope at least it's informative enough to give some good examples on the different types of damage calculation and why crit is pretty impactful for invokers at endgame. Thank you.